Thursday, August the 16th. Sorry about no fishing report last week. We were up in Montana and Wyoming doing some sightseeing and trout fishing. So it felt good to take a couple weeks off. It's nice and cool up there. But actually when we got back here, it was nice and cool too. It looks like it's, starting to cool down a little bit. Not a whole lot's changed since, I went out today. I had a guide trip, and fish were kind of in the same spots they were before we left on vacation 2 weeks ago. Lake level's about 909. It's dropped maybe a foot in the last week and a half, and it's steadily dropping. Water temperature was 82 and a half, got up to about 84 degrees, which that's 3 or 4 degrees cooler. Most of the fish we caught today were on a drop shot. We caught some fish on topwater early, jointed redfin and a skitter pop by Rapala, but I think a little pop-R will work as well. We threw a football jig around some brush piles in 25, 30 foot of water, but most of the fish we caught today was on a drop shot, and they were all suspended. We didn't get much of a bottom bite at all. We fished 3 or 4 spots, and then when we started getting bit off the suspended fish, and these were out off of long points, off of bluff ends, the bottom depth didn't really matter. I was anywhere from 60 to 80 foot of water, but I was fishing about 25 to 30 feet. Most everything seems to be in that 25 to 32 foot range. Some of them were coming out of the top of trees. The tops of the trees might have been down there at 40 or 45, but we caught them up there in that 25 to 30 foot range. Fished a lot of deep docks on the ends of them and on the shaded sides of them. That's where the majority of our fish came from today. And the bait that's been working the best for me still is a little 4-inch chomper's worm, either in a plum, or they've got this plum land that's been working real good, fishing it on a 1/4 ounce drop shot weight and a 6-pound line. But like I say, we didn't get much of a bottom bite going. But tomorrow I'm going to go out fun fishing with a buddy, and right before I went on vacation, I talked a little bit about going up to the upper river arms and the upper creeks. And especially now, we got some rain coming in right now, so we ought to have a little cool water coming into the backs of some of these creeks. And what we're going to do tomorrow is we're probably going to start out with a buzzbait. And I primarily just throw a black and blue or a dark skirt with an all-black blade. I like a little clacker in there. If I want it to make a little bit of noise, I can just bend the blade in a little bit so it hits the clacker. If I feel it's making too much noise, I can bend the arm away a little bit so it's not clacking. But what we're going to do is go, and it doesn't have to be up into the river arms, like any of these big long creeks, especially if they've got a little live water, springs coming into them. We're going to get almost all the way in the very backs where there's anywhere from 10 to 12 foot of water left, where there's a real distinct channel. There'll usually be a tree row or a stump row on one side and a flat on the other. The good thing right now with the water level like it is, there's not a whole lot of water on the flat, so the fish aren't going to be scattered out. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to key on what brushes on the flat, if it's got a couple feet of water on it, or right on the stump rows along the channels. And what we'll try to do is key on the little swings in the channels, any place that makes a little bend. And if the channel comes up like against a rock bluff wall, what we'll do is we'll fish a jig, and I'm going to throw it's a 3/8 pig sticker jig. It's the Snowden model, and normally I throw like a speed craw or a critter craw for a trailer, but with the water temperature and as active as a lot of the bait is, I'm actually going to throw a pocket chunk. The leg's got a lot more action, and I may even swim the jig, especially by some of these real shallow brush piles. Instead of fishing it real methodically in and out of the brush, what I'm going to do is swim it by it, try to get a reaction strike from some of the fish. Now, like I said, I'm going to start out with a buzzbait, and I'm also going to throw a spook some in the morning. And a spook will work throughout the day, even if the sun is up on a lot of these real shallow brush piles. I've found times that I can throw a spinnerbait or a crankbait by the brush, or even a jig or a worm flipped in it, and not get any reaction from the fish at all, but take a top water and run it over the top of it. It's like they can't stand it. They'll come out and blast it. But I've got an old, it used to be chrome black, but it's got most of the paint wore off, where it's kind of a bone color on the bottom. I don't think the back of the color of the bait makes that much difference, because heck, the fish isn't seeing it. The only time he's seeing it is when he misses it and comes over the top of it. But another one that'll work good is the frog pattern. I like it. It's got a little green and black and yellow on it. And another thing we're going to throw up there too, before we get to the very backs of the creeks, we may work some of the secondary points, the last ones that got like 20-25 foot of water on them. And with the water being as low as what it is, there's a lot of cedar trees, the tops of them sticking out. And what we'll do there is we'll kind of do a combination. We'll mix it up between a buzz bait over the top of them, a spook, and a spinner bait. And my choice of spinner bait is going to be it's a Screaming Eagle, War Eagle. And what it is, it's a 1/2 ounce bait, but it's got the blades that normally come on a 1/4 ounce bait. This thing is made for ripping, you can make real long casts with it, and the way it's set up with the small blades, you can wind it just about as fast as you can and the bait won't roll over. It'll stay right up on the surface. And what we try to do when we're coming through these cedar trees, you want to cast past the tree 10 or 15 foot, and ideally you come right through the middle of the tree, and if the bait doesn't hit a branch when it comes through, what you want to do is pause it just for a second and let that skirt flare out. And you don't have to work slow. Like I say, you want to work it fast. You don't want the fish to get too good of a look at it. You want to just try to get a reaction strike out of it. And normally, if that'll work for you, you can just start jumping point to point to point. And it'll usually be like the last tree, the last one that you can see before deep water, or if you're coming to a point that's got a lot of different hardwoods and cedars. It always seems to be better for me if there's isolated cedars, just 1 or 2. I don't do as well on the points that are just solid cedars. It seems like either mixed hardwoods or just isolated by themselves. I think it's less places for the fish to hide. And something else that you might try, if you get a few bites on a spinnerbait where you got some of them fish coming out, if you get into the creeks where there's a little bit of stained water, you might try a 7 or a 9-inch Texas rig worm. Just back off from the tree where you can make a short pitch and literally just, try to get the line on the limb and just feed that bait right down to the tree. Let it go down about 8 or 10 feet, try that depth. If that doesn't work, let a little more line out and go down a little deeper. A lot of times the fish are in them trees, but they won't come out for the spinner bait, but if you drop a bait down into them, you can get them to come out that way. But like I say, it's pouring out there right now. Hopefully we'll get some more, quite a little bit of rain, help cool the water down and bring some new water into the lake. So if we get quite a bit of rain tonight, one of the first things we'll do is probably go right to the backs of the creeks and the pockets to see if there's any fresh water running in. And what that'll do a lot of times, it'll be a good water temperature change right in the back where that cooler water's coming in. It also washes in a lot of nutrients and just things that the shad will feed on. Therefore, it'll bring the fish into the same area to feed on the shad. So, like I say, if we get some rain, go back in and check that out in the very backs. But if not, the main lake, we're still catching a lot of fish out there on the drop shots and on that deeper stuff. But the size seems to be the problem. We're catching keepers, but if we catch keepers, it seems to be 2.5 pounders. So tomorrow what we're going to do is go play around, see if we can find some bigger largemouths, and we'll be talking to you next week and tell you how we made out. So until next week, good luck, good fishing.